This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning, everyone. The first item here is an amendment to the agenda. It'll come in under new business, the enhancement of the OPP for Southgate. So I call the meeting to order, and confirmation of the agenda is amended. Move in a second.
Sorry, Councillor Frew, what did you want to add? Just say it again, please. I just didn't catch it the first time.
Enhancement of the OPP for Southgate.
Okay. Under new business.
Under new business, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So who's going to?
Alan DeBrino, move it.
Alan, seconder. John.
Deal.
Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Hearing none, you may declare it at any time during the course of the meeting. Adoption of the minutes. Be resolved, the board approve the minutes of January 18, 2022 Service Board meeting as presented. Don and John, thank you. Business arising. Hearing nothing, we shall move on to item number 7, Detachment Commander's Report. It's rather lengthy, but it's well done. All yours, Deborah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is for the months of January and February of 2022, and I'm going to be starting on page 2, just taking a look at the calls for service for Southgate. They're up quite a bit since 2020 compared to 2021. I expect 2022 to be no different. I attribute that mostly to the increase in population, not only permanent population, but also the tourism during the summer months. Anytime you get more people and vehicles in the area, the chances of calls going up are pretty good. If the board would like, could take a look at Southgate's top 10 calls for service, just to give you an idea if that would be helpful. I can certainly get our analyst to put that together for the next meeting, just to take a look at the issues there. Below that, the chart shows the victim services for Bruce, Gray, and Perth for 2022 with respect to looking out for victims of crime and referring them to victim services for some assistance. On page 3 of the report, COVID-related calls for service, I'm really hoping that those go down for 2022 as we come through the pandemic. False alarms were up a little bit in 2021. And it looks like 2022 is trending that way as well. The 911 hang-up calls for service down slightly in 2021, so that's looking good. Violent crime, so that takes a look at the last 5 years, homicides, sexual assaults, robbery, and assaults. The only number of note would be under the assaults. Again, when you get more population, the higher these calls for service go, but there's nothing really very significant, just a slight jump there. As you can see by the graphs below, that mostly the violent crime is trending downward, which is a good trend. On page 4 of the report, we're taking a look at property crime, and that includes fraud investigations, break and enter, auto theft, theft, and mischiefs. So it's good to see that the frauds investigations are going down. We did do some proactive work with our community services officer and did some presentations to the elderly which are a vulnerable part of our population and are sometimes targeted by fraudsters. So I'm hoping that helped out quite a bit. And there has been a lot of media coverage on these types of frauds as well. So break and enters are up. We were talking about this yesterday. We have identified 2 persons of interest with respect to some property crime that dated back to August of last year. We believe shortly we'll be laying some charges. There's quite a bit of property that was recovered. I believe it was close to $70,000 worth of property that's been recovered. So once those persons are charged and have conditions on them, we're hoping that property crime number will be coming down. And that goes along with the auto theft and the theft in general. Mischiefs are pretty much the same. Drug investigations, they're up slightly in 2021. That was due to our community street crime unit. Their mandate is street level crime and property crime, or sorry, drugs and property crime. And they did a few warrants in South. So that would account for the higher number there. Other investigations, which includes domestic disputes and missing persons. Domestic disputes, again, when the population goes up, those type of numbers go up as well. But overall, not only in Southgate and Grey Bruce, it is trending down from previous years. Page report. This report is submitted by our Detective Sergeant Byron Ross. So in the last couple of months, for January and February, they managed 49 benchmark crimes. These are the more serious crimes that take a little bit more expertise in their investigations, and included 24 sudden deaths, 2 of which were opioid overdoses, 8 sexual assaults. This is for all of Grey County, I should point out. 8 sexual assaults, 5 criminal harassment investigations, a large fraud complaint, and 2 cases of voyeurism under 18 years. Our unit here is also assisting with other major crime units with investigations and statements. And they also help our frontline members and guide them through more complex investigations. One of the previous sudden deaths that was being investigated, the toxicology came back on, and it was an opioid overdose. And whenever we have that, there's a parallel investigation by our street crime unit trying to identify the supplier and lay charges in that regard. As you can see below there, there's still 4 ongoing homicide investigations that our crime unit is looking after. The work doesn't stop once we lay charges. We still have to prep for court. There still may be additional interviews to be sought out, and working with the Crown Attorney to prepare for the court case. On page 7 is our community street crime unit, normally run by Detective Sergeant Jamie Blair. He is on another assignment right now, and filling in for him is Jeff Dudley. Jeff Dudley comes with a large amount of expertise, and particularly with intelligence. And what they've been working on, a firearms and stolen property investigation that they concluded. They attended an address in Chatsworth, executed a high-risk warrant, 2 firearms, numerous firearm and ammunition were seized, drugs including fentanyl, methamphetamine, and prescription pills, as well as a stolen UTV. So the total value of property was just under $20,000, and the total amount of drugs that were seized is just under $6,000. Both the male and female have been charged with numerous offenses, and that'll be going to court. The street crime unit arrested a male who is wanted on several domestic related charges, and he was deeply entrenched in the drug subculture. And they assisted with that and successfully located and arrested that male. During the January and February, Gray Bruce OPP assisted in different areas of the province with respect to the Freedom Convoy protests. So that would be in Windsor and Lambton County and also Ottawa. And so our street crime unit, occasionally they have to put their uniform back on from plain clothes, and they go out and help the front line. Sometimes they stay in plain clothes and help with intelligence as well. That lasted for about 2 weeks. The community street crime unit attended an address and recovered 3 stolen vehicles valued about $150,000. I believe that property was in Southgate. A small quantity of drugs, ammunitions, and stolen property was seized. And they've got 1 person charged with several offenses and property obtained by prying over $5,000. They're also working with municipal police for this investigation and expect charges in other jurisdictions as well. The front line conducting ride enforcement. They located a loaded prohibited assault rifle, which was seized, and the community street crime unit assisted with the search warrant for the vehicle, and some individuals were charged with fentanyl trafficking, a small amount of fentanyl, cannabis, and dangerous weapons, and $920 were recovered in addition to the firearm. Part of the investigation, as I said, with sudden deaths, if it's a suspected drug overdose, the community street crime unit does a parallel investigation, and in one of those investigations, they were able to execute a search warrant and on a fentanyl dealer's residence, and recovered cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, packaging material, digital scales, drug paraphernalia, worth about just under $1,700. And there's 2 males facing charges in that regard. And they, while Sergeant Dudley is here, based on his experience with intelligence gathering, they're working on concentrating on the loss of life and opioid epidemic, and they're focusing heavily on identifying and charging individuals responsible for bringing the drugs into our county. Page 9 of the report is just a report on our e-ticketing trafficking. Just lists the top 10 charges for traffic-related offenses. Usually January, February is a little slower in the traffic enforcement, largely due to the weather. We've had some significant weather events in the last, particularly February. It's really difficult to do any radar when it's snowing and blowing out there. But we have started the half-load enforcements, and once that concludes, I'll be including that report in our police service board report, just so you know the totals. Page 11 of the report, just reviewing the motor vehicle collisions in the Southgate area. Most of them were driver error or speeding too fast for conditions. There are a couple of animal, wild or domestic animal collisions, but mostly driver error. There's nothing that jumps out with respect to any issues regarding intersections or engineering of those intersections that the municipality would be interested in. Top of the report, Southgate impaired over 80 charges. 2021, there was 15. So far, so good in 2022. Hopefully those numbers come down. We've had 2 pursuits last year, just 1 this year. The traffic complaints, noise complaints, and animal complaints, nothing significant there with respect to the numbers. Just want to bring your attention to patrols. You've got January and February with ride and foot patrol. I'm not happy with those numbers. They're zero. I have sent an email out to the sergeants, bringing that to their attention and asking their zone officers to concentrate on both those areas and bring that number up. Page 13, just a report on our paid duty hours. Our media / community service officer, Nick Wilson, just highlights on the type of events that he's been working on. And just gives you an idea of the type of community service work that he does. Presentations, OPP kids in the schools, presentations to seniors, like I mentioned before. Page 17 of the report is a report from our court bureau. Sergeant Jim Hunter's in charge of our court bureau. So for January and February, there was a level 1 and 2 criminal record checks, 145, and 31 vulnerable sector checks. I just wanted to mention to the board that come April, we'll be transitioning, not just us, but the province will be transitioning to a centralized criminal record check system. I know that that rolled out previously and it had to be called back because of some technical errors. They seem to have worked that out. So that will be much more streamlined and done on all online. So that's going to be rolling out in April, and hopefully by fall it'll be up full. Our part-time officer unit, there's 4 officers that have retired and we called back on contract. They work about 20 hours a week, and they serve summonses and subpoenas for us and do civilian fingerprints. They run the bails from detachment so that we don't have to pull officers off the road to do that. Page 18 is our auxiliary unit. We're still running short in our auxiliary unit because of COVID. The recruitment was stalled for days, but we will be looking to, once things open up, bring those numbers up. They're a great resource for our detachment, absolutely. And finally, the noteworthy events. As I mentioned, Grey Bruce Detachment, we had uniform and civilian members deployed to assist with operations in West Region and Lambton, as well as Ottawa, to assist the rest of the province with the Freedom Convoy protests. We did not run short-handed. We backfilled with overtime for those officers that were deployed, but that does not get costed back to the municipality. They would, the way it's scored on their activity reports, it would be just as if they were here. So just want to bring your attention, PC Hesseltine, while he was en route to an Ottawa deployment, he stopped and assisted Central Frontenac officers on a scene with apprehending unwilling, I guess, came across it while he was en route to Ottawa, and was able to stop and help out. And PC McKenzie, he displayed great patience, respectfulness, compassion, and honesty with his interaction with an agitated male that was barricaded in his apartment for 2.5 hours. We were able to apprehend him without any hurt. And that, Mr. Chair, is my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Well, that was a good report. I have one item here that I marked out. Yeah, the false alarms. There's a steady increase in the number of false alarms. So we'll be addressing that today. We've had 9 so far this year. And the hang-ups are something that we can't do too much about. Okay, be it resolved that the detachment commander's report be received for information. Move on a seconder, please. Don and John. Any discussion on that? Any comments? Hearing none, that is passed. Correspondence. We've got quite a bit of correspondence. How do you want to handle that? Most of it is congratulations to the
So Councillor Frew, we just need a mover and seconder to just receive them as information.
Alan DeBrino will move it.
Yeah, there's not an awful lot of that interest. Seconder, please.
I'll second it, Dale.
Okay, Dale, thank you.
Turnabout.
Ministry of Solicitor General, amendments to the police record checks. I think we already addressed that, didn't we? The cost of the record checks have gone up too, haven't they, Deborah? Gone up to $41.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you're saying the price of them have gone up?
Yeah,
For the
they've
record?
increased. Used to be $25, wasn't it? It's now 41.
Yeah, I believe there was only a fee that was charged for people who are seeking employment, that sort of thing. If it was volunteer work, then there was no charge.
Mhm.
That could be due to the new system that's coming out.
Yeah.
So Jim, Don here. Jim, a question. Can you go to any detachment to get that check, or do you have to go to your home detachment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the criminal record checks are done online. So you would fill out the application, you would scan ID, and that would come into a centralized mailbox. And then once it's ready to be picked up, right now you do have to come in. We have 2 mornings set aside to pick up criminal record checks, one in Wyerton, one in Chatsworth, and they would just show their ID, pay the fee. It has to be exact amount. We don't keep a float here, and then they can have their criminal record checks. Come April, it will be completely online, where you would be paying online through a third-party vendor, and then coming to one of the 2 detachments to pick it up.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go to new business. You may find this interesting. The CAO of Southgate had a complaint about the OPP.
Councillor Frew, can we do the other 2 new businesses first, then we'll do the one that we added? Just keep in line with the agenda.
Which one do you want?
Well, we'll start with 9.1, the conference, and then we'll do the false alarm bylaw, and then we'll do the one you added.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
The conference attendance was settled at a prior meeting in order to get the item into the budget.
Yeah,
So,
we just if I can comment, Councillor Frew, we just wanted to make sure that at the time we weren't sure if there was actually going to be a conference. So we did appoint yourself and Mayor John Woodbury to go. We just wanted to bring it back to make sure that now we know for sure there is a conference, that the other members wanted to attend. I don't know that they will, but we just wanted to bring it back now that we know there's actually a conference. conference because we weren't sure at the last meeting.
Well, let's put a call out for that now then. It resolved that the board approved members. So you've got 2 names so far. And everyone else declined the conference, so we're left with the 2.
So just a mover and seconder, Councillor Frew, to approve that, and we'll be good to go.
Well, Don has left, so those remaining, John and
Dale.
Dale.
Also,
Okay.
also move.
Don's back. Okay. 9.2. This is a bylaw that we put together to answer the problem of false alarms. And the bigger the township gets, the more of these calls we're going to have coming in. So has everyone had a chance to scan that bylaw?
Councillor Frew, maybe just add, so at the last, I can't remember which meeting it was that I had the draft at, but I didn't have the fines in it yet. So I do have the fines in this final version. I looked at Wellington County and a couple others that had it, and the fines I just put in were consistent with those ones. So I just wondered if the board thought that was enough. I think it's enough to cover the administration costs. I will say this bylaw is subject to council's approval. I'm planning to take it to the next meeting, the April 6th meeting, for their approval of it as well. And at the same time, we would amend the fees and charges, but I just wanted to make sure the board was comfortable with the fines that I had added. It's in section 2.1 of the bylaw.
So the fines will be amended at a later date.
No, like I put them in this bylaw, so then if we approve it today and council approves it next week, then those would be the fines set.
Well, I think those will require some adjustment because $100 for a trip out to check a false alarm doesn't cover the cost of that officer and his vehicle.
So you think they should be higher then?
I do. Perhaps the detachment commander can figure out how much it would cost to a call, because the first call, if it's $100 and the third call is $300, it doesn't make sense. There should be one cost for every call. So could you work on that, Deborah?
This is what I took from Wellington County. That's what they had. I think that's what Deborah's familiar with when she was in Wellington, but
Wellington County went up to $385 per call.
okay,
Jim?
well, that wasn't what I seen, but that's fine. We can change it.
Also,
Mr. Chair?
notes in here that somebody called.
Yeah, Jim, Don here.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until recently, some of the newer phones, when you're in an accident, automatically dial 911. And I've had that happen to 2 of my staff where the phones fell out of their pocket and run over by the tractor and it dialed 911 automatically when it's broken. Now, I'm not sure. When the phones are doing that, they're creating the call. You didn't create the call. I guess you run over the phone or it fell out of your pocket or something. I got it. And is this the way the new ones are all going to be? If it is, that's going to affect your bylaw a wee bit.
Well, so far there's been 5 911 hang-ups, and they're on the increase. 2019, there was 160 of these, so that's 160 times that the OPP is going out to invest something that is carelessness by an individual. I don't know whether or not they should be charged or not. We'll concern ourselves with the ones that the OPP authorized to be calculated as a cost.
If I may, If I may, Mr. Chair, this is not for 911 hangups. We don't want to regulate that because we don't want to discourage anybody from calling 911 if they need the police or EMS or fire. This is with respect to, businesses or homes that have an alarm system on it, and perhaps it's not working properly, and sometimes we get multiple alarms at the same place, or if they change the code and didn't tell somebody, and so they don't know the code to punch in. So a lot of them are false alarms, and that does take 2 officers to attend in the event that it is a legitimate alarm. And the fee for that is an incentive, 1, to get it fixed if it's not working properly, and 2, to encourage the business owner or the homeowner to manage it well so that they reduce the amount of false alarms that we go to.
Yeah, I think we've got that addressed in the bylaw.
Yep. Sorry about that, Jim. I didn't read it in detail enough.
That's okay, John.
So-
No silly questions.
So Councillor Frew, do you want us to defer the bylaw and I can bring it back with the higher fee, or do you want to amend it at this meeting? Like, do you just want, or does the board want $385 for like your first call? Or how do we want to structure it?
I think we should let it go as it is right now, because the fees and charges bylaw has to be changed also. So we'll
Correct.
leave it as is, then make an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw. Our council has to make an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw. We'll recommend the penalty in the bylaw as amended. And once they change the fees and charges bylaw, then we can apply it to this.
But the problem is the amounts are in this bylaw. So do you want to amend the bylaw so it doesn't say amounts? It just says as appears in the fees and charges bylaw?
Well, we have to go by what's in the fees and charges bylaw.
No, I realize that, but I just take what's in this bylaw and give it to our treasurer to bring forward in the fees and charges. So that's what I'm saying. Should we change? Like, I'm thinking maybe now it would be easier just to not put the fees at all in this bylaw and just leave it as a general clause, like where it just says 2.1 fees and charge, like included in the fees and charges bylaw, and leave it at that.
I think you've got it right. Yeah.
Okay, so if the board wants to approve this bylaw as amended, then I would just remove that section. So all it says is where there is an OPP response to a false alarm, the alarm system owner shall be responsible for the fee as set out in the Township of Southgate fees and charges bylaw. And leave it at that, and then council can make that decision.
Very good. Question for Deborah. When these bylaws are enforced, where does the revenue go?
Well, it's administered by the township, so it would go back to the township. So as far as OPP is concerned, our detachment, what we would need to know is who the liaison officer or the liaison person would be at the township office we would be dealing with, what information you would require from us when we attend a false alarm, for instance, whether we were canceled by the homeowner or business owner. Would you want to know that? Want to know if we actually attended, if the key holder showed up or not, that sort of thing. So if you just let us know what information you need to provide, I can relate that back to our officers. So when they clear the call, they can put that in the summary. And also, do you want this information once a month, or how often, like when we should be reporting it to you?
I think that would depend on the number of calls. We don't want to be creating work.
The way the bylaw has it set out is monthly.
And that would be addressed by Liam.
It would go to his staff, yeah, to
Okay.
invoice it out, yes.
Okay.
So we need approval of this new bylaw.
As amended.
as amended, and we need a move and a seconder.
Alan DeBreen has a question before we do that.
Go ahead.
Under the appeals on 5.3, the board shall review the appeal within 60 days after the appeal is filed. With us meeting quarterly, could that possibly not be long enough where we might have to call a special meeting just for that?
Well, I wasn't thinking of a special meeting just for that. I was hoping
I wouldn't think we would need one, but if maybe we could extend that so that it would cover a meeting depending on the time that the appeal came in.
when the appeal comes in, we're going to need 2 members of the board to sit on a committee to review the appeal and then bring a report back to the board for a decision. We don't want the whole board getting involved in it. So if it's okay with you good people, I would recommend Alan Dobreen and Don Lewis to be members of the committee to the appeals. How do you gentlemen feel about that?
That's fine with Alan DeBreen.
Okay.
Good. So we have the board established. Can you address that matter too, Lindsay?
Yeah, I'm just, the way that the bylaws wrote, it says the board shall review it. So that, in my opinion, is the entirety of the board. So we would have to make some changes there if it's only going to be 2 members.
Three
Alan
members.
DeBreen.
Chairman.
Yeah, that's the way I understood it. That's why I asked the question. Maybe it should be 90 days.
Yeah, I agree with Member Dobreen. Like, it should come to the board. It shouldn't just be that's my opinion. It should come to the board. Because you're going to have to make a whole nother committee if you're just going to have people.
Well, the suggestion here is that the individual complaining would sit before the whole board, including yourself.
That's how I would see it. Like, it's the board that should be reviewing it, in my opinion.
Okay, well, also there is something in the procedural bylaw that the chair can form a committee. But I'll stand by what you say.
Okay, so I'll change that to I'll change that to 90 days as Member Dobreen pointed out. I never really thought about the meeting frequency, so that was a good catch.
Thank you.
So where do we stand now? Move it a second?
Yeah, it's still as amended.
Alan DeBreen will move it.
Done.
So Alan Dobreen's moved it. Just need a seconder.
I'll second it, Dale.
Hey, Dale. Good. Thank you. So we're at new business now. That has been passed, hasn't it? Well, there's
So
no
just
further discussion on that.
No, not on that one. So just your item that you added at the beginning of the meeting, Chair Frew.
Yeah. Okay, good. This may be a little controversial. There was a request made by the CAO. It was more of a demand request about the way that the OPP were working within Southgate. And there's been a considerable number of meetings. The mayor, myself, and detachment commander, and the CAO. A lot of the information that was given out at the start of this was basically hypothetical. There was more fiction than fact in what was being made available to us. And it's most unusual that a member of the council will get so involved in police matters that it gets quite alarming. But the end result was a meeting yesterday morning, 9:30, where the enhancement of the detachment or the OPP for Southgate would be full-time equivalent. And the cost here is of great concern to myself. If we approve this change, there's a $200,000 startup cost for the first full-time equivalent constable. If you go to the sergeant, you add another $10,000 to that, plus $23,000 for transportation. And after the first year, the second year was $180,000 yearly. Can the residents of Southgate afford to have another full-time equivalent in the detachment?
Do we need it?
Well, that's for you guys to decide. See, the thing is, every municipality has to provide adequate and effective police services in accordance with its needs. Frankly, I think we have a good OPP presence in Southgate, and I really don't see that we need to have anyone else anymore. It's up to this board to decide. Do we really need an additional full-time equivalent, or is the detachment being run well enough to continue as is? John?
I think at this point, though, Jim, it's more of a, do we want to look into this? I don't even think we need to be at the point where we decide. What this was brought up from was just the few things that were happening last year around Swinton Park and in Dundalk. And it was looking at whether we, with the growth and with, excuse me, some of the problems, if we had enough people and handling it in a different way. The OPP have done a great job here. They've had a lot of time tied up with, as Jim said, a lot of rumors and false statements that the residents believed to be true, but they still ended up being false statements. And the OPP does a really good job, but do we need something more? And part of the discussion yesterday was, do we need somebody assigned as more of a community officer, whether it's a sergeant or whatever, so that there's somebody out in the different communities and visible and doing the different things. With the numbers, the OPP is in the community a lot, but with their other stuff, they don't have the time necessarily to turn up at the different events and get to be part of the community more, like some of the ones that used to be around before that would be able to take a little bit more time to go and get to know people and to get the lay of the land. So I think from my point of view, at this point, it's a matter of, do we want to look at this or not? If we do, then we can start looking at what the needs are, and we may find out there aren't any. And that's fine, or we may find out there are, but it's just, to me, it's more a matter of is this a road that we want to go down looking at with the growth we're having and things like that. So that's basically my take on it, and Jim's 100% with the numbers. It's not a cheap thing, but it's more of a if we need. So like I said, just looking at it at this point.
Well, frankly, I feel that we have met our requirements as it's for the whole township. and I'm not prepared to make any recommendation with respect to this extra body. I think that's something that council has to make a decision on. And I would suggest that the CAO, who brought this thing forward, also stated that he doesn't want to have it implemented this year. He wants it next year. Well, he's still here this year. He should make the decision now. He started all of this. Wasn't the board? Let him finish it.
Jim?
Yes, Tom.
Detachment commander help me out here, but I thought that was regulated by the province. So there's so many officers per population and business sort of level, activity level. Isn't it a little bit out of our
sort of per capita thing.
Pardon?
I would say it is, but the OPP have a graph or a chart that indicates what's required. The detachment commander can probably answer that better than I can.
And through you, Mr. Chair. So how we come up with the number of officers at detachment is related to the calls for service. And the calls for service have been steadily going up, as you can see by the reports from year to year. I can say that the OPP undertook a staffing review that we've had a presentation on, but it has not been announced publicly. I think that what was discussed previously, and it might assist the board in deciding what they want to do, Mr. Chair, I could arrange to have a community sergeant and perhaps the equivalent to his municipal board member come and talk about what he does in the community and what he does and why they decided to go with that particular enhancement. That might help you make a decision one way or the other to see if it's worth the money or not, I guess. So we do expect in the next 5 to 7 years to have additional officers here. But like I said, it does take time to hire the officers, train them, and so forth. So there is a time gap there. There are other municipalities that do elect to have an enhancement to the service that they have just to meet their specific community needs. And like I said, I can make those arrangements maybe for our next meeting if the board wishes. I could arrange to have them present to the board and you could ask questions of them. And not just the officer, but it was a neighboring jurisdiction, their police services board come and speak to you.
I have a question, Dale.
Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
So, with respect to what we've just heard there, if council is the ones that have, or in the CAO or whatever, that have some concerns, I don't disagree with what the process or with what we just heard about what could be made available. Could the council not be involved if they have some concerns about what's happening? Could they not be involved with the police advisory board, listening to the protocol and what the cost could be, just so that you accomplished two things with one meeting?
Well, the problem that I have is there was one complaint that was brought forward, and I think you were involved in this complaint too in Swinton Park. But Dave took it to the extreme. Dave has even talked to Dave has also talked to the Premier about the service and the detachment, and I think he was out of line when he went that far. But he feels that there is a necessity to have this additional constable. He doesn't want to be around when the costs come in. He's going to be retiring this year. He's going to leave it to the next council to make the decision. And I don't think that the board, I haven't heard from anyone on the board that the service is inadequate. I think we are fulfilling our requirement, and that's as far as I would like to take it. Any other comments?
I think politically, and that's what it's all boiled down to by the way it sounds, is that maybe, and I just would like my question answered, I think there's some concerns being addressed at council, from what I have heard by only by what I read in the news and whatever, in the council news, and I'm quite familiar with what has went on in Swinton Park, and still some of the concerns that are there. And I'm not saying whether this is the right way to go or not, but if the police detachment is willing to take and bring some numbers and say how the procedure would work or what the costs incurred, could it not be an information meeting for both the police advisory board and the council to take and listen to the information they have to provide us? It's council that makes the ultimate decision anyway. But so if that's the case, why wouldn't they be involved in listening to the information that could be provided by the people that are going to provide the service? That's just my feeling.
You suggest this officer would address council?
I would address both the advisory board and the council at the same time, so everybody hears the same information at the same time, that it's not two different meetings. And then you just get it, and then however the decision process is after that, that can be decided. But I think if the council has concerns and the police advisory board, whether we do or we don't, we may as well listen to what the process is, if that was to be the case, to make an informed decision.
So you're suggesting that we have a council meeting with the board attending the council meeting to see what can be done, or what
or
should
the council, or the council attend the police advisory board meeting, have a second part of the meeting or whatever, and that's what they are involved in, is in what this proposal is, and they join the call or however you want, or we go to their meeting or a special meeting. I don't know, but I just think if there's going to be, it'd be a lot more efficient if the information is delivered to both parties at the same time, and the pros and cons.
Don, what's your opinion? There's more members of council than there is members of the board.
My opinion is I like Dale's idea, and that way we either start off on the same foot or we finish it all on the same foot, but we all get the same information. And however we arrange it, whether it's through the police services board or through like a committee of the whole, then we can have a discussion of how we want it handled and the whole bit too, so that we're all on the same page, one way or another. And I agree with Dale that it's more efficient if we all hear this at the same time and from the same people, and that way, it's we're on a same footing, so nobody's going off on a tangent in that. And just to add in, when I was with Dave when we talked to the premier, and he wasn't, there wasn't complaints about the OPP. It was lobbying for more officers for the detachment, whether they're needed or not. It was saying that that was the would be good if the province would up the number of officers in general, across the province. So.
And I stand corrected.
Well, Jim, I could.
Yep.
Don here. I don't mind having a meeting, only I just wish we didn't have a Zoom meeting if we're going to have that meeting. If it's going to be the council, that how soon before the new council chambers open, John, that they could have a proper meeting and hear the pros and cons?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we figured about 6 weeks, but we've learned over these last 2 years that 6 weeks can be a few months. But we could probably, Lindsay, we could check with the restart committee and see if we can't get, doesn't have to be the new council chambers. We could get a meeting together somewhere. I think that would be a good idea.
The arena.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be far, far better than this virtual thing.
Yeah, I think that would be, so we could probably arrange that if that's what the board wants.
Thank you.
What do you think, Deborah? Face-to-face get-together, board, council, and the OPP?
I would welcome that. I could certainly, once you decide on a venue and a date and a time, I can certainly arrange for our municipal policing bureau to be there. And if the board wishes, I could arrange for a community policing sergeant to attend to talk about what they do, and also see if he can get one of his board members to show up and speak board to board, so to speak, and answer any questions that you might have.
Lindsay, can you step in on this one?
In which way?
Find a venue that's available.
Yeah, I just would have to bring it to the restart committee, our COVID restart committee, and see where we would go from there if we can meet in person and that sort of thing.
And I leave that in your capable hands.
Yep.
I thought everything lifted on the 21st of March.
That's the mask mandate. The township still has its emergency declared. We have not terminated that yet. We hopefully will soon enough, but like I said, I'll just have to go to the restart committee and see where we go.
Well, that's John's department.
Yeah, what we found out so far is that the directions from the province are about as clear as usual. So some things have stopped, some haven't, and we're just wading our way through it. But yeah, if we could meet in person, and this won't happen this week, so it doesn't, you know, I think we'll probably be good for when it does. And yeah, it would be a good start. I think everybody'd like to get together.
Okay, have we put this matter to bed now? Members, privilege, good news and celebrations. It's nice to see that Dale came back.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? If not,
Jim?
confirmation of the next, yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
just going to say, remind all the board and anybody who wants to volunteer, Maple Fest is reopened and coming back again in Holstein on April the 9th. So
I would love to be there, John, because I enjoyed it when I was there those few years back. A little too much for me now.
all right.
Confirmation of the next meeting, Tuesday, May 17th, 2022 at 9 a.m. Well, I thank everyone for their input. This was a bit of a concern for me, and we managed to get through it. So thanks again for your input. Who would like to move an adjournment?
Also move. Dale.
Dale
Alan
and
DeBreen,
Alan,
second.
Alan and Dale sound so very much alike. I just wish we had video there. Deborah, thank you for all of your input and patience with this business of detachment requirements. You've done a stellar report. Been very patient with us.
Oh, my pleasure, Mr. Chair.
Pardon?
My pleasure.
We to thank Dale and Alan for the adjournment. So have a good day. It's getting
Councillor
warmer.
Frew,
Yes,
Councillor
ma'am.
Frew, can you just stay on the line with me? I just have to ask you something unrelated to the meeting before you jump off.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
The meeting's adjourned then.